A few cups of wild huckleberries, only half a cup of sugar, a squeeze of lemon or citron, and a pinch of old-fashioned spices. After a long simmer on the wood-burning stove, it's into a lard pie crust and off to the hot oven. But this pie isn't one that most people will ever make, because the bones of it are truly wild.
Good.
Huckleberries to this day defy any cultivation whatsoever. They only grow in the wild. So today we have a once-a-year treat, fresh huckleberries that have taken the long journey from one side of Montana all the way to the other. And it's all thanks to our good friend Brad, who you may remember from the restoration and rebuilding of this 1889 homestead house. Well, he's here to don an apron. You're ready to work, Brad.
I am.
And give us a glimpse into the old Montana he remembers from his childhood. So let's simmer down these berries, rough up some lard, and spend all day making a heavenly and rare pie straight out of history. Let's get cooking. You may hear in my voice that a summer cold has found me, but no matter. There's work to do. There's a fire to light and a cookstove oven to get heating up. But today's food is going to take not just heat, but cold too. Pie crust is very fiddly that way. So how the heck do we get anything cold in the middle of a hot summer on the prairie? Well, I've talked before about how easy we have it in our modern world, where we can pop food in the fridge or freezer, or grab ingredients at near any time of year. But back in the homestead days, that was far from the case. Odds are you didn't even have much access to ice out here in the early days. It wasn't like back east where maybe your neighbor had an ice house and there were stores nearby. A homesteader out here was isolated and lived mostly off of the most basic of basics, the bare minimum. But a root cellar was your one way to cool food down. And that's going to come into play with our pie crust. With our cook stove and our root cellar ready, that's the big tool sorted. It's on to the recipe itself. We grab a cast iron skillet from the wall, and then we have to immediately start mixing the dough for the pie crust. It needs as much time as we can give it. Because it's not just any pie crust. 2 out of the handful of ingredients are from way back in history. First off, lard. Leaf lard, the gold medal of fats for baking. 6 tablespoons of this creamy white rendered fat goes into 2.5 cups of sifted flour.
Which is, the difference is?
This is harder,
Okay.
flakier,
Yeah.
and it works better. And we also have about 1/2 cup of butter. The lard is for texture, giving us all those flaky layers, and the butter is for richness of flavor. Together, this is an unstoppable team. But what about our second historic ingredient? Well, this one is to combat the heat. We don't have ice water out here. We don't have a freezer to chill the dough. And anyone who knows the trick to pie crust knows that it's all about keeping everything cold. Well, that's impossible out on a hot summer day, out on the prairie. So what did people used to do? Well, this is a strange one, but the solution is vinegar. Yep, homemade apple cider vinegar goes into the pie crust. The science behind it has to do with gluten formation and bonding, but in a nutshell, the vinegar allows the dough to avoid becoming tough and to let the fats evaporate and puff into flakes as the pie bakes. Without vinegar, that dough would just not work in this hot weather. Are we going to be able to taste that vinegar in the finished pie crust? It's a bit of an experiment. We're going to find out. Now is the key moment of mixing dry and wet ingredients. To the dry flour and fat mixture goes the vinegar with a little cool water. And we bring it together just until it holds, being very careful not to knead it or overwork it. This is where gentle hands really are the best tool. Just bringing the pie dough together. Straight away the dough is covered and put down into the cool root cellar. It's maybe 50 degrees under here, which feels lovely on a hot day. But as useful as root cellars are, they have a dark side. Root cellars, or even just a cool crawl space, which is more near to what this is, wow, do they have a history. And I've talked to more than a few people who remember the fear of going into a root cellar, because out here on the prairie, we have two terrifying things.
Where you see red eyes when you look back at the film.
The Farming Museum in Fort Benton actually has a whole exhibit on this. A root cellar was perfect habitat for two things. Brace yourselves for this. We have black widows, of which I have seen many, and they love a dark place like this. I mean, they are a prairie species after all, so it's natural for them to be around, but a place you could often see them was your root cellar. And if you think of all the nooks and gaps in an old homestead house, you know that mice would have been an unstoppable force in any shack. And what eats mice? Rattlesnakes. I hate snakes. I especially hate rattlesnakes. My father was bitten twice when I was a child growing up on our family's ranch, but there are many tales of going down to the root cellar and of being wary to hear a rattle sound in the corner. Often the cellar was a place you got in and you got out very quickly. Being down here in this darkness, my mind ran through all those stories of creatures that can surely get into a dry stack stone foundation like this one. And on that note, I dropped the pie dough and I got out of there lickety-split. The longer the dough can be down here, the better. But without a filling, a pie has no soul, no identity. That is where this once-a-year treat is timed just right for this moment of high summer.
It's the dog days of summer, but if the black bears have taught us anything, although it feels like summer will never end, winter is just around the corner. And it's time to start harvesting huckleberries. Berries are often here for a minute and then they're gone.
The black bears gorge themselves on these berries to prep for winter, and frankly, we're going to do the same. Our good friends Brad and Teresa are very generous. They grew up in the Montana of days gone by, and they know about a really special food unique to a very small region of the north here. And they've picked enough from out further west around the Flathead to bring back and share with us. We're talking about huckleberries. The huckleberry is a very rare treat. It only grows in one specific spot out west, but it did happen every so often that a friend might visit from a few counties over, and such a good friend may very well have brought a treasure that they had picked themselves right off the land. Now, we aren't going to find many huckleberry pie recipes. It's just too rare. So this is a recipe I'm creating based on stories and likely available ingredients. We start with as many huckleberries as we can get. Here, that's a scant 3 cups. They are naturally very sweet, a lot like a blueberry, so just half of a cup of sugar is all that's needed. That goes on the stove to bubble and simmer and try to get it to thicken and reduce down. The trick with this type of pie, which resembles a blueberry pie, is getting it to thicken using 1800s techniques. We aren't going to add store-bought thickeners, so traditionally, I think they would have cooked down the berries and juices to basically a jam-like stage. We're going to do that. But to hedge our bets and avoid a soupy pie, I'm going to gamble on another ingredient. And it's one that records show became a new discovery and a huge hit around the time of the Civil War, so the 1860s. And that is tapioca. But not the big grains of it like in a pudding. We have some tapioca that's been ground into a fine flour. And that's going to help us solidify the pie filling. A little bit of lemon zest and juice helps change the acidity and solidifies the pie as well. Maybe a homesteader would have just thrown flour into their pie. Maybe they would have put whole tapioca pearls in. But this ingredient speaks to the new availability of foods from far and wide at this point in pioneer history. 100 years before, this didn't exist. 100 years later, we're so sick and tired of tapioca, we never eat it anymore. Although I have to say, I love it. This is a food, yeah, you sure couldn't grow it, but you may very well have been able to get it cheaply at your supply store in town by the late 1800s. It was all the rage. This was a time when food was really starting to change. All right, a few more ingredients are going into this pie. Along with 1/4 to 1/2 cup of tapioca, we'll add the spices of old-fashioned cardamom and nutmeg. Never underestimate history's love of nutmeg. But they can't go in yet. These must wait for the filling to cook down a lot more than it already has. We don't want the spices to get bitter or for the tapioca flour to lose its thickening abilities. So while the pie dough is chilling down in the root cellar and the berries are bubbling on the cooktop, I'm gonna pick Brad's brain about what Montana was like during his childhood. Brad was not quite born in the 1800s, but he does know a thing or two about old Montana. Glimpses of those early days were still going strong when he was a young boy out in the Flathead. I mean, Montana was a very unpopulated and wild place well through the last century. Life not all that long ago was very different there from today.
Specify.
Now, Brad is no fair weather friend. He's the real deal. He's the guy who hoisted roof rafters up on this old homestead cabin and put new boards over the mouse and skunk-ruined parts. People have asked us the backstory on this little one-room shack, and we actually have a whole giant year-long series about it, but in a nutshell, this little house is lucky to be here. It was on the list to be burned out years ago, like so many of the other first buildings in Montana. If only the power lines didn't run overhead, that would be its fate. Now we call this place Uncle Dan's. This is the spot that was homesteaded by Uncle Dan, Robbie's great-great-uncle, way back in 1889, before Montana became a state. It's not the earliest house in Montana, but for a humble man, this house is pretty darn early. This was the house Dan built, and much of it remains a mystery, even after lots of digging. But our friend Brad has been a huge part of the muscle of rebuilding it, hauling in the cook stove, re-tar papering the outside. And all that work has brought this little house back to life. It's given it a purpose. So instead of being torn down, it has a use today. We may not live in it, but we treasure it and we love it fiercely. Getting to cook in it together today, well, it's as satisfying as any restoration project gets. This little house is back from the dead, and it stands here in a lonely field as a testament to Wild West history and the men and women who lived here and raised families out here.
So you grew up, well, you spent a lot of your childhood in Montana, right?
Yes.
So the 60s in Montana, were there a lot of people or was it still kind of undiscovered?
Flathead, the Kalispell area, there was 10,000 people in Kalispell when we were there. Glacier National Park right next door. You have the Flathead Lake, which is the largest freshwater lake west of the Mississippi. And it's a great place to be raised. Not that many people, hadn't even been discovered really.
I can only imagine, because it is like paradise.
It is, it was. It was just a great place to be raised. We used to go huckleberry picking like everybody else did back then. And you get in your car and all the kids and grab your buckets, and we would go up to Hungry Horse, across the Hungry Horse Reservoir there. Go 3 or 4 miles in and you could just look up on the hillside and there's huckleberries everywhere. You could just pull over, you had your own spot. You know, you'd see cars driving by and stuff, but everybody'd just go to their own patches and stuff.
Yeah. Would your mom preserve them then?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, both my parents were born in the 30s, so they were both Great Depression babies, and
right.
So they preserved everything, kept everything, didn't waste anything type people, and the bears are out. Black bears mainly. We didn't see a lot of grizzly bears.
They don't make me as nervous. The grizzlies make me nervous.
Yeah, they
Black
should.
bears, yeah. The grizzlies, yeah.
Well, they're all getting ready for hibernating, so they're stuffing their guts, and even into the 70s we did it, and then it started getting more populated and more people were going out to do huckleberries, and the places got less and less just for you and your family because everybody else. And nowadays you can go to one spot and there can be 20 cars sitting there and everybody's up on the hillsides, and there's, I mean, I'm not exaggerating, but people will argue, and I think for the most part everybody's still pretty good, but there's just so many people up there, it just takes the fun out of it. But everybody's wanting the huckleberries, so.
No, the world has changed. And it really is only in that area.
As far as I know, the Flathead is, I think there might be some in Idaho, northern Idaho, but I'm not positive about that. Definitely the Flathead Valley is a huckleberry. But
it's wild. We're only a few hours east,
yep.
And there's no chance they'll grow here.
No.
None.
No. It's the soil, it's the climate, it's the altitudes. I don't know all of it, but it was fun.
So while Brad and I talked, you saw those huckleberries cook down and start to thicken on the stove. We pulled them off the heat, stirred in nutmeg, Townsend's would be proud, and some cardamom, which is a spice I love to add, especially in place of the more modern cinnamon. Then in with the tapioca flour, and that makes our filling complete. Ah, but the race is on now. We have to get that root cellar chilled pie dough out. We need to roll it and make 2 crusts. Truly, speed is key here. No dilly-dallying. Cold lard and butter are what make the flakiness happen. So here goes the rush.
Oh, it's so cool down there. I just want to stay down there.
Whew, no rattlesnakes got me down there this time. So I'm up and at the east-facing window, patting out and rolling that vinegar dough fairly thin, maybe 1/8 of an inch. It's a moist dough, pretty tender, so a sprinkle of flour helps to keep it from sticking. Into cast iron is the next step. But I've found that heating the iron a little bit first really ensures a crisp bottom crust. I don't want the skillet piping hot. The bottom will get too hard and it may even burn if I do that. But resting the skillet atop the cook stove on an edge farthest from the wood box, that seems to get the temperature just right.
You can tell water just splashed on here.
Oh,
It's hot.
very hot.
The whole thing's hot. Thanks.
Into the warm skillet goes the bottom crust. And into that, the brightly colored huckleberries go next. That color is just truly stunning. It's so vivid. For the top crust, a solid piece of dough would work. But that's not what we chose today. My little ones have a playhouse pie, and I want to recreate that. Or to make a rustic homestead version of that, I should say.
You're a goof.
With a more fluid filling like this, we risk the lattice sinking. Some recipes I found tell you to throw out the huckleberry juices and just keep the berries in order to avoid the lattice sinking. Well, that is absolutely nuts. No way would a true pioneer toss that goodness. It's some of the best part.
Oh, hey, you want to mix that, crack that egg in there?
Yep.
So we're keeping every bit of huckleberry and just risking it all. 1 ranch egg gives the crust that color and a little something for sugar to stick to, just to take this over the top. I still can't get over the color of those huckleberries. There's just nothing like it. The lattice goes on, and the crust is getting crimped ever so rustically.
Tell me what that does.
So this is what makes it glossy. The color comes out in it. It just makes it lovely.
And then quickly the whole iron skillet needs to be rushed into a piping hot oven.
Into the oven. Woo, that's a hot oven. Ah.
We're looking for above 400 degrees for the oven. No temperature gauge though. That would be way too easy. After a decade plus of using various old wood-burning cook stoves, I can pretty much stick my hand inside and I can know pretty well where we're at. A slack oven, a hot or a quick oven, I can feel what that is now. If that seems hard or too inaccurate, I hear you and I've been there. This was the cooking from history. It's why even recipes from that era are so vague. You had to know the feel. But you learned that by watching Mom and Dad and absorbing knowledge rather than studying it. We all used to learn that way, especially in the kitchen. But that doesn't mean that I've got full confidence here.
That is a good hot oven.
I have burned a pie or two, and I've seen a pie or two emerge after all that effort soupy. Both of those fears are with me right now. So we're gonna peek here and there every 10 minutes. And we'll just gently feed the wood stove and then let it start to cool as the pie bakes on.
Yeah,
Good.
no more wood.
This might be the very best part about an old wood-burning oven. You can start hot and then gently let the temperature fall. And I'm gonna start with the pie up top in the oven, and then as that crust gets golden in color,
Brad,
I'm gonna
look at
bring it
this.
down to the bottom of the oven where it's cooler.
Oh my
Now
goodness.
you let that cool.
For pies, there's really no more perfect way to bake, and it's hard to recreate in a modern oven. This is a spot where the 1800s have us beat. I can hear those berries simmering in the skillet. Now that is a heck of a frontier pie, a real piece of history. No matter how perfect it looks right now though, I made a miscalculation. It needs time to set up, and we don't have it. Brad is a busy man, things to do, life must go on, right? So we need a plan B for the final act of this story. But one thing we can savor in this moment, those little shreds of dough that we popped in the oven alongside the pie.
What do you think? Should we try one of these?
They're actually my favorite and Robbie's favorite and the kids' favorite part of pie baking. A sprinkle of sugar and dash of spices over the trimming of the pie edges, and you have the best treat of all. And it's good that we have them, because I'm realizing that there is no way we will have the privilege of eating this pie today.
Not bad for a 98-degree cabin.
Lucky for us, though, after packing up all the gear and the blazing hot pie, this affords us the opportunity to have the greatest breakfast ever thought of: huckleberry pie and ice cream. A homesteader's breakfast? Yeah, probably not. But we have one foot in history and one foot in the modern world here. So a hot cup of hazelnut coffee, a slice of pie, and joyfully a pie that is holding together very well. Our methods worked. And we have a heck of a once-a-year treat.
It's gonna be good.
Of course, we have to give one big slice to Brad and another for his lovely wife, Teresa. Doing this in the iron skillet really created a crisp bottom crust that was not the least soggy. The huckleberries got to be the star of the show here, really celebrating their specialness.
This is amazing pie, Mommy. Isn't it, Georgie?
It's
Thanks,
wonderful.
Daddy.
I do. It's my ice cream all purpley.
A big thanks to you for cooking with us in the 1800s kitchen. If you enjoyed the adventure, please like, subscribe, and share with a friend. I'll hope to see you next week by the fire. We just might tackle tallow soap, the old school way. Cheers.
It's warming up. It is.